Yeah, I think the funny thing is, it's all these things almost seem to have like a time limit to them. So this whole mocking failure, the brutalization of anyone that fails, I think it's almost kind of run its course a little bit now. I mean, don't get me wrong, like the tabloids, the rags are always going to do that. But if you look at it in like the political sphere, so let's face it, we know our government, like a lot of governments, have made an absolute cluster, you know what, of how they've dealt in parts with bits of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was even some like right-wing Tory supporting publications like the Daily Mail, and some of their authors were going, for God's sake, just hold your hands up, admit that you got bits of it wrong, and the people will probably forgive you. Apart from the arseholes that just hate you no matter what.
Exactly.
I think we're reaching that stage now where it's almost like, well, maybe not. No, I think I'm being too optimistic, but if we can get to that point in society where we go, look, it's okay to make a mistake as long as you rectify it or you take responsibility.
They'll never do it because they know that, or they feel that it will come back and bite them on the arse. What they don't realise actually is that if they were, rather than when they were asked a question about where they did sod up and sitting there and doing and coming off, and like they're asking a question about what happened with PPE, and he finishes with what's going on in hospitals and completely deflecting questions. Like, people can see through that.
They see through it. They see through it.
When he was doing the announcements every day, and then all of a sudden the press started asking questions. And don't get me wrong, he's very good at being able to deflect questions, because that bumbling kind of fool that he plays on with that works really well. But the whole thing behind that, I don't think anyone's ever going to be accepting of failure. And I don't think what you've got to look at now with media, before it used to be just blanket media going out with papers and them dictating people's opinions. Now it's almost the people dictate the opinion. When you go on Twitter, all of a sudden this mob goes on there, and because someone says Black Lives Matter, everyone goes in that direction. And because someone sits there and says that Trump's a prick, then they go in that direction. You know what I mean? And it's easily led in this kind of like mass, or what would you call it, gang mentality, or mob mentality, that type of thing. So it's failure is never going to be allowed, or it's just too, people jump on it too quickly, because it makes them feel good about their life. Do you know what someone said to me the other day in a message? Watch these videos. They were like, like really entertaining. I never realised watching people talk bullshit was so entertaining. And I was like, oh, brilliant. Oh, thanks for that. And it came back, and it was actually, it really makes me happy knowing that the two positive guys, the two positive guys on the telly have a shittier life than me.
Yeah, there's a lot wrong with that. There's a hell of a lot wrong with that. And
I was like, so what? You're what? So my like, you feel that my life is shittier than yours, and that makes you feel good. Yeah. And then they came back to me and said, no, you have a lot of good stuff in your life. And I was like, which way are you going with
but
this?
Andy, that's the Instagram thing, isn't it? It's exactly that. You know, people build it up in their heads that the world is perfect, all the rest of it. So then they only get they look outside and think that other people are leading these perfect lives, but we know that's not true. So when they see evidence that these lives aren't true, that people are struggling as much, they get that, people are always going to compare themselves to someone lower than them because it makes them feel better. It's always what they're going to do. It's just, I think it's human nature to a degree. But that's
which is why EastEnders used to be so popular, and people used to watch that because it's a lot easier. Like, I mean, if that was real life, these people would be dead. They would have topped themselves.
No one would ever live in that part of East London. No one would ever live wherever Corrie is, because you're going to die and get murdered.
Having said that, I have spoken to people that those lives are a bit like it, and it's just like, mate, how do you go through life like that? Absolutely mental. But yeah, I think the taking our this 40 thing seems to be taking like a common theme, which is responsibility. It's taking responsibility for your actions, it's taking responsibility for yourself, and it's taking responsibility for the good, the bad, the ugly. It's the whole thing, because at the end of the day, it's you. Yeah,
I think there's Jocko Willink. I don't know, have you heard of him?
No, that's a weird name.
Yeah, but you wouldn't say that to his face. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. So, he'll beat the crap out of you. He's one of those military people that took everything he learned, took it into the private sector afterwards. There's a lot of consulting with businesses and stuff like that, or leadership and whatnot. And he's got a book called Extreme Ownership. And I've only started reading it, but he relates all of his lessons back to his time serving in, I think it was Afghanistan and possibly Iraq, but definitely Afghanistan. And his whole thing is, if you're a leader, just take responsibility. That's all it is. Yeah. Don't blame the market. Don't blame anything else. But I even think on an individual level, it is amazing, going back to my point, it almost being like a superpower. I've made so many mistakes, and I see people where someone makes a mistake and they're there with their boss or, you know, family member or friend or whatever, and they're just in justification mode. Yeah, but. And all that does is it keeps the blame game rolling. It keeps it rolling. And here's the other thing. You can defend your position, but accept responsibility at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go, I totally accept that. I'll explain this. This is what happened. This is why I did it. Now, if that's incorrect and I've done that wrong, then I apologize.
I made the best decision that I possibly could at that particular time. Now I understand that it's wrong.
Wasn't the right one. Yeah.
That's it. And exactly. Don't get me wrong. Look, it's all well and good me talking about this kind of stuff, because in terms of the taking responsibility and things like that, I'm the first to sit and go, no, and then just kind of sort of bat it off. But then what happens sometimes? So sometimes I will be like, yeah, look, I sodded up, sorry. But then sometimes it catches you off guard, and immediately that defense mechanism comes. And you go, no, that's it. But then then you go away, and then I'll be sitting like, maybe I've slept on it, and then the day after, and I'll sit there and go, yeah, I fucked up there. And then come back after to go, yeah, sorry, I've had a mare.
People will respect far more those who admit their failures, far more. As it is in some ways, it's almost like this really crap superpower, but it does work really well. Where when I've made mistakes and I've picked up the phone and I've gone to my, and I've thought about it, like you said, and I've gone to my boss, tried to hold my hands up, dropped the ball on that one, should have done better. To be honest, I just didn't occur to me. And then it was like, that's okay, because no one's perfect. No one has a perfect memory.
Get this though. Let's put this on its head, because as you were talking about that, I always thought about when you go into interviews these days, they ask you what your strengths are, but then they also ask you what your weaknesses are. And then every time you never properly tell them. What do you say? Yeah, what are your weaknesses? Well, I love a drink.
Yeah, like imagine, problem. I just imagine me going in for a job as a trainer, and I go, right, so what are your weaknesses? I just don't like people. I just don't.
You just go there. So what, in this kind of a professional environment, what would you say your weaknesses are? Yeah, do love to swear. Just constantly. It comes out every other word. So insert ism here. My racism, sexism, homophobia. Sharp, mate. Okay, yeah. I like.
That's not true.
I have been known as inappropriate Andy. I can say really bad innuendos at any time. Just wondering if that's going to affect my job chances.
I would actually say though, because it's not something you can just do overnight. It's almost like one of those learned skills. The whole kind of take responsibility, own your actions, what you did or did not do. It is a skill. It is a skill. It's not something you can just flick a switch on. Because like you said, the next time something happens, and I challenge people watching this to do this, where they feel like they're being blamed for something and all the rest of it, before you react, no, I didn't do that, or no, it wasn't me, or no, it's not my fault, or it was Jerry in accounts that did it, or whatever. Take a moment, stop and go, actually, did I have some responsibility in this? And if so, own it.
Or even in that situation, let's say that you do react like that. If you do take a bit of time out and think about it, look back over times when you may have reacted like that. Because I can tell you something now, every single one of you out there has got multiple situations in which this has actually happened. And that's both good and bad. When are the times that you've had something, that you've done something good, and then you've not taken responsibility for it, or you've not given yourself a pat on the back? When are the times that maybe you've made a decision and it's gone bad, and then someone's come to you and the old finger comes out? With that one, everyone loves that, don't they? When they start giving you one of them ones and that finger comes out, immediately the finger comes out, then bang, the reaction. So look back at those times and how could you have reacted differently? That's because everyone's got them.
Yeah, and here's the question. What I'd love to see, if you could do a case study on this to compare two companies. So one is just your average company. You've got some people in there that are very good at this. You've got some people in there that are kind of in between. Then you've got probably the majority of people that make excuses. It wasn't me, the yeah buts, right? The yeah but people. Then if you could compare that company's output with this other company that you use as almost like an interesting case study, i.e. you built a culture of accountability and responsibility in there, where the first response wasn't, yeah, but it was, okay, that's fair, you're right, I did do that, or you're right, no, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I would be fascinated if you were to track both of those over a period of, say, 5 years, from startup to, you know, a 5-year-old business, where they went on that.
That's it. Do you know what I'd like to do? So imagine, like, what I'd like to do is, say with this vaccine, I would like to get a group of people going together that are on the yeah but side and making excuses that try and make the vaccine, and then I'd like to try and get someone that takes responsibility and then see who makes the vaccine quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be.
Who takes responsibility, and where does that? It's all about the team, and it's like when you watch those things on. I can't remember the name of them now, but you know when people get put on islands and stuff like that, and like when stuff like that. Castaway and stuff, and it's when the team works together, and there's, don't get me wrong, everyone argues and stuff like that, but it's when people aren't taking responsibility, because maybe one person's sitting there and they're grafting and they're lifting all the wood and they're making all the bits and pieces, and then the other they turn around and then someone's sunning themselves over there, and they go over to the person and they sit and go, hey, what are you doing? I've been doing all this, I've been doing all that, and the person goes, what? I haven't done anything wrong. No, and immediately justify their position on it. In the other person's eyes, they have done something wrong. In their eyes, they haven't. Do you know what I mean? So it's that kind of dynamic. Yeah,
absolutely. Right. Well, I think that was a good overview.
But poor Jamie now is switched off. Look,
I'll be. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what other people think about this, because do you think that you make excuses rather than take ownership of what you do or did not do? Can you have examples of them where you've actually owned up to something and it's been the best thing that you could have done in terms of just putting the situation to bed? Are you bad at taking responsibility for the good things that you do? Because some people find compliments really, really hard. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, well, they won't, because we've asked them to comment before and we ended up with basically a few.
It's almost like they don't care. It's almost
it's almost like we're not as famous as like Joe Rogan.
I refuse to accept this.
I'm not having it. I'm not taking responsibility for that. We are famous and we are brilliant at what we do.
You just don't know that we're famous.
But other than that, guys, look, remember, we need you to subscribe. If you don't subscribe, we won't survive. Remember, follow at Jamie and the Bird, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram. Remember to subscribe to our channel. Remember to like our videos. Remember to comment. Basically, blast us everywhere. Like, because I am annoying people on a daily basis with Insta stories and Facebook stories, with them seeing this, going, right, need to comment, need to do this, need to do that. So get on it, and the more we do that, the less I need to bother my mates on Facebook.
Yeah, this is true.
Nice one.
All right,
done.
Yep. Take care, guys.